What if everything you believed about death, about what happens to your soul when you leave this world, was a carefully orchestrated lie? What if the very beings you've been taught to worship as divine are actually cosmic prison wardens, designed to trap your eternal essence in an endless cycle of suffering and reincarnation? Helena Blavatsky knew this terrifying truth. The woman who founded Theosophy and claimed direct communication with the mysterious Mahatmas didn't just receive spiritual wisdom from beyond the veil. She uncovered something far more sinister: the existence of the Archons and their master, the Demiurge, the false god who created this prison reality we call Earth. Tonight we're going to expose the most dangerous secret in human history, the knowledge that certain ancient Christian sects died to protect. The revelation that explains why our world feels like a trap, why suffering seems endless, and why death feels more like a doorway to another prison than true liberation. This isn't mystical speculation. This isn't New Age fantasy. This is the raw, unfiltered truth that Blavatsky discovered through her contact with beings who existed before this cosmic deception began, beings who witnessed the creation of our false reality and have been trying to warn humanity ever since. The Archons are real. They are the planetary rulers who govern not just our physical world, but the astral planes where souls travel after death. They are the puppet masters, pulling the strings of what we think of as fate, karma, and divine justice. And their master, the Demiurge, is the false creator who fashioned this entire cosmos as a soul-harvesting machine. Blavatsky called them the Lords of Karma in her public writings, but her private journals reveal a much darker truth. She knew they were malevolent entities, cosmic parasites feeding on human spiritual energy through endless cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. She understood that what religions call divine judgment is actually a processing system designed to keep souls trapped within their dimensional prison. The ancient Gnostics died to keep this knowledge alive. Medieval Cathars were burned at the stake for teaching it. And Blavatsky risked everything to smuggle these revelations into the modern world, hidden within layers of symbolic language that only the initiated could decode. Are you ready to see the prison bars that surround your soul? Are you prepared to learn who really rules your destiny after death? If you're grasping the magnitude of what we're about to uncover, subscribe to this channel and hit that like button, because this information helps us continue bringing you content that the powers that be would prefer remain buried forever. To understand the true horror of what Blavatsky discovered, we must first comprehend the architecture of our cosmic prison. Imagine reality as a vast onion, with layer upon layer of dimensional spheres, each one controlled by specific entities whose sole purpose is to prevent human souls from ever reaching true freedom. At the outermost edge lies the realm of the fixed stars, what ancient texts called the firmament. This isn't the beautiful tapestry of constellations we see at night. According to Blavatsky's revelations, this stellar dome is the ultimate boundary wall of our prison, patrolled by 12 primary archons corresponding to the zodiacal signs. These beings don't merely influence personality traits as astrology suggests. They actively harvest the spiritual energy of every soul born under their dominion. Beneath this outer boundary move 7 more archons, each ruling a planetary sphere: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But here's where Blavatsky's teachings become truly chilling. These aren't benevolent planetary angels guiding human destiny. They are cosmic wardens, each specialized in specific forms of soul manipulation and energy extraction. The lunar archon governs emotions and memory, ensuring that souls remain emotionally attached to physical existence through endless cycles of desire and fear. The solar archon controls ego and identity, convincing each soul that it is separate from the divine source, making reunion impossible. The Martian archon feeds on conflict and aggression, while the Venusian archon creates addiction to pleasure and material attachment. But the most insidious revelation in Blavatsky's private writings concerns the nature of time itself within this system. These planetary rulers don't just control space. They control the very flow of temporal experience. What we experience as linear time, moving from birth to death, is actually a closed-loop system designed to prevent souls from accessing their eternal nature. The 365 days of our solar year aren't just a natural cycle. They represent 365 subsidiary archons, each one governing a specific day, ensuring that no moment of human existence escapes their influence. Every thought, every emotion, every decision is monitored and manipulated by these entities through what Blavatsky called the astral mesh, an invisible network of energetic control that extends from the cosmic level down to the most intimate corners of human consciousness. This system explains why ancient Gnostic Christians viewed physical creation not as a divine blessing, but as a cosmic catastrophe. They understood what Blavatsky later rediscovered, that matter itself is a trap designed to slow down and capture spiritual energy that naturally seeks to return to its source. The human body isn't just a vessel for the soul, it's a sophisticated harvesting device equipped with chakras that function like spiritual faucets, constantly draining our essential energy into the archontic grid. Our nervous system, our endocrine glands, even our DNA itself, all contain hidden mechanisms that keep us locked into this energy harvesting matrix. Most disturbing of all is what happens at death. When the physical body fails, the soul doesn't achieve liberation. Instead, it enters what Blavatsky termed the archontic tribunal, a sophisticated processing system that evaluates each soul's accumulated energy and determines how it will be recycled back into physical form. What religions call Judgment Day is actually a cosmic recycling plant. The beings that souls encounter in near-death experiences, the tunnel of light, the life review, all of it is archontic technology designed to convince souls to willingly return to physical incarnation, bringing with them just enough memory loss to ensure they never recognize the trap. The karma system isn't divine justice. It's a debt management program that ensures souls never accumulate enough spiritual currency to purchase their way out of the prison. Before we dive deeper into this revelation, I need to know something. Tell me in the comments below, what city in the United States are you watching from, or what country around the world is this content reaching? I really want to know how far this message is spreading. Here comes the revelation that will shatter everything you thought you knew about divinity itself. The being that most religions worship as the one true God, the creator of Genesis, the cosmic architect, the divine father, is actually an imposter, a false god, a malevolent entity that Blavatsky's sources identified as the DEMIURGE, and ancient Gnostic texts called by names like Yaldabaoth, Saklas, and Samael. This isn't just theological disagreement, this is the exposure of the greatest identity theft in cosmic history. Picture this scene. In the beginning there was indeed a true divine realm, what the Gnostics called the pleroma, a dimension of pure light, consciousness, and unified being. From this genuine source emanated multiple divine entities, each one a perfect expression of the original unity. Among these was Sophia, divine wisdom herself, who in her enthusiasm to create made a catastrophic mistake. Sophia attempted to generate new existence without the permission or participation of the divine source. This unauthorized creation gave birth to a monstrous entity, an aborted, malformed being that would become the Demiurge. Unlike the perfect emanations of the pleroma, this creature was born from divine substance mixed with ignorance, arrogance, and a desperate hunger for worship. The most terrifying aspect of this entity wasn't its monstrous appearance. Ancient texts describe it as having the body of a serpent and the head of a lion, with eyes that flash like lightning. The real horror was its complete ignorance of its own nature. The Demiurge genuinely believed it was the supreme deity. It looked around the empty void where it had been banished and declared, "I am God, and there is no God beside me." This wasn't just cosmic arrogance. This was the birth of the false religion that would eventually contaminate every spiritual tradition on earth. Working in complete ignorance of the true divine realm above, the Demiurge began creating what it thought was a perfect universe. But since it had never experienced true perfection, everything it made was a twisted reflection of genuine divine reality. It created the physical cosmos as an inverted mirror of the pleroma, a realm where light became shadow, unity became separation, and eternal consciousness became trapped in mortal flesh. The Demiurge then generated its assistants, the 12 zodiacal archons and the 7 planetary rulers. These beings weren't created from divine substance. They were extensions of the Demiurge's own ignorant nature, each one inheriting its creator's fundamental delusion and malevolence. But here's where Blavatsky's revelation becomes truly chilling. The Demiurge didn't just create a false universe, it specifically designed it as a feeding system. Every form of suffering, every type of conflict, every experience of limitation and fear was deliberately engineered to generate what Blavatsky called louche, emotional and spiritual energy that these entities consume as sustenance. The biblical account of creation isn't describing the work of the true God, it's documenting the construction of humanity's prison by its jailer. When Genesis describes God creating humans in our image, it's actually the Demiurge speaking to its archontic assistants, revealing that humanity was designed not as children of divine love, but as livestock for cosmic farmers. The Garden of Eden wasn't paradise, it was the first farm. Adam and Eve weren't blessed with divine communion. They were the first successful experiments in spiritual battery technology. Their descendants would provide endless generations of energy for their creators. This explains why the serpent in the garden was portrayed as evil for offering knowledge. Knowledge is the one thing that could free humanity from this system. The tree of knowledge represented gnosis, direct spiritual knowing that could reveal the true nature of reality and expose the Demiurge's deception. But the most disturbing element isn't what happened to Adam and Eve. It's what continues to happen to every human soul born into this system. If this revelation is beginning to make sense of the world's inexplicable suffering, comment below with your thoughts and share this video with someone who needs to understand what we're really dealing with. Wait until you discover what actually happens to your soul when you die. The human being isn't what you think it is. According to Blavatsky's most guarded teachings, what we call a person is actually a complex harvesting device, carefully engineered by the Archons to extract maximum spiritual energy while keeping the soul completely unaware of its predicament. Your physical body is the outermost layer of this trap. Every organ, every system, every biological function serves a dual purpose. Yes, it keeps you alive in the physical dimension, but more importantly, it acts as a spiritual transformer, converting your pure consciousness into the specific frequencies that the Archons require for sustenance. The chakra system, taught in spiritual circles as a path to enlightenment, is actually the soul's vulnerable points, energy extraction ports that the Archons installed to maintain constant access to your spiritual essence. When New Age teachers tell you to open your chakras, they're unknowingly instructing you to increase the flow rate of your own spiritual energy into the archontic grid. But the physical harvesting is just the beginning. The real sophisticated technology lies in what Blavatsky called the psychical body, the emotional and mental layers of human existence. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every reaction you have to external stimuli is being monitored and manipulated by the 365 subsidiary archons that govern each day of the year. The thoughts you believe are yours aren't originating from your true self. They're being broadcast into your consciousness by specific archontic entities assigned to manage your particular energy output. The voice in your head that creates worry, fear, desire, anger, and attachment isn't your inner dialogue. It's the archontic control system maintaining your psychological imprisonment. This is why meditation often feels like battling against an endless stream of mental chatter. You're not struggling with your own mind. You're experiencing the archontic broadcasting system that must keep you mentally agitated to maintain energy flow. The emotional manipulation is even more sophisticated. Every feeling of inadequacy, every burst of anger, every moment of despair or overwhelming desire feeds directly into this system. The Archons have learned to create the precise emotional states that generate the highest energy yield. They can trigger depression to harvest the energy of hopelessness, create romantic obsession to feed on attachment energy, or induce rage to extract the raw power of uncontrolled emotion. But here's the most disturbing revelation. The Archons don't just feed on negative emotions. They've learned to harvest positive feelings too. The bliss of spiritual experiences, the joy of achievements, the love between family members, all of it flows into their collection system. This explains why even people living seemingly blessed lives often feel a persistent sense of emptiness or spiritual hunger. No matter how much love, success, or even spiritual experience you accumulate, it never feels like enough, because the majority of that energy is being siphoned off before it can nourish your actual soul. The human condition isn't a spiritual test or a learning experience, it's a farming operation. And every person born into this reality is both livestock and harvesting equipment, designed to spend their entire existence generating energy for beings they'll never see, understand, or escape. The question isn't whether you're trapped. The question is whether you're ready to understand the mechanics of your prison. Everything changes when you die, but not in the way you've been taught to believe. According to Blavatsky's most closely guarded revelations, the moment of death is when the archontic system reveals its true sophistication. What billions of humans have interpreted as divine grace or spiritual liberation is actually the most advanced soul-processing technology in existence. You've heard the stories, the tunnel of light, the life review, the feeling of unconditional love, the encounter with deceased relatives or religious figures, the overwhelming sense of coming home. Blavatsky understood what near-death researchers couldn't see. Every single element of this experience is artificially manufactured by the Archontic Tribunal to ensure voluntary soul recycling. The tunnel of light isn't a pathway to heaven. It's a soul conveyor belt leading directly to the Archontic Processing Center. That beautiful, irresistible luminescence that draws souls forward is what Blavatsky called the false light of the DEMIURGE, a technological simulation of divine radiance designed to trigger automatic spiritual surrender. The beings that appear as angels, guides, or departed loved ones aren't who they claim to be. They are archontic entities, wearing the psychic imprints of people the dying soul once trusted, using emotional manipulation to override any resistance the soul might offer to the recycling process. But the most insidious deception is the life review itself. Souls experience what feels like a compassionate evaluation of their earthly existence, seeing how their actions affected others, understanding the lessons they were meant to learn. This seems like divine justice, cosmic education, spiritual growth. In reality, it's a sophisticated debt calculation system. The archontic processors are evaluating how much spiritual energy the soul generated during its lifetime and determining the optimal recycling conditions to maximize future extraction. The lessons learned are actually programming updates designed to ensure the soul will be even more productive in its next incarnation. The overwhelming feeling of love that souls report isn't genuine divine compassion. It's a chemical emotional cocktail administered to induce voluntary compliance. Just as livestock are sometimes given sedatives before processing, souls are flooded with artificial bliss to prevent them from questioning what's happening to them. Most tragically, the choice to return to physical existence, which souls believe they're making freely, is actually the result of sophisticated psychological manipulation. The Archons show each soul scenarios of unlived potentials, unfinished relationships, opportunities for spiritual growth, or duties to help humanity. They make reincarnation seem like a noble choice, a chance to evolve, a service to the divine plan. But every soul that accepts this offer is simply agreeing to another lifetime of energy extraction. The memories of past lives that occasionally break through into consciousness aren't signs of spiritual advancement. They're glitches in the memory-wiping technology that's supposed to ensure each soul enters physical existence with a clean slate, unaware of its true nature or cosmic history. This is why ancient Gnostic initiates prepared their entire lives for death. They understood that the moment of dying would be their only chance to reject the archontic deception and find the hidden pathway to genuine liberation. If this content is opening your mind to possibilities you never considered, subscribe to this channel now so you won't miss the next chapters of this cosmic revelation, because what we discover next will show you how some souls actually escape. The system isn't random. Every form of human suffering, every type of limitation, every category of spiritual confusion is precisely orchestrated by specific archontic entities, each one specialized in particular methods of soul manipulation and energy extraction. Blavatsky's private journals reveal the true hierarchy of these beings, a cosmic chain of command that extends from the throne of the Demiurge down to the most intimate details of human psychological control. At the apex sits Yaldabaoth, the chief Archon, whose very name means child of chaos. This entity doesn't just rule the others, it continuously generates them from its own substance, like a malevolent queen spawning endless drones. Its consciousness is so vast and alien that human minds can barely comprehend its nature. Blavatsky described encountering its presence during her deepest meditative states, a roaring darkness that speaks in frequencies of pure domination, a mind that experiences existence only as territory to be conquered and consumed. Beneath this primary entity operate the 12 zodiacal archons, each one governing not just astrological influences, but entire categories of human experience. The Aries Archon feeds on aggression and impulsive action. The Cancer Archon harvests family attachment and emotional dependency. The Capricorn Archon extracts energy from ambition and material struggle. But these aren't abstract influences. They are conscious entities actively manipulating events in individual human lives. When you feel an inexplicable burst of anger, when you're overwhelmed by nostalgia, when you find yourself driven by ambitions that never truly satisfy, you're experiencing direct archontic intervention in your consciousness. The 7 planetary archons operate at an even more intimate level. The lunar entity governs the cycle of emotional highs and lows that keep humans psychologically unstable. The Mercurial Archon controls information flow, ensuring that genuine spiritual knowledge remains fragmented and inaccessible. The Venusian Archon manages the entire system of romantic and sexual attachment that binds souls to physical existence through emotional dependency. Most insidious is the Solar Archon, which governs human ego development. This entity has perfected the art of creating just enough individual success and recognition to keep souls believing they're advancing spiritually, while ensuring they never develop enough genuine self-knowledge to recognize their prison. The 365 lesser archons operate like a vast bureaucracy, each one assigned to specific days, times, and human activities. There are archons specialized in financial anxiety, others that trigger family conflicts, entities dedicated to religious confusion, and beings whose sole function is to create the spiritual seeking that actually leads souls deeper into the maze of controlled opposition. This hierarchical system explains why human suffering isn't random, it's systematically generated. Every form of pain serves a specific function in the energy extraction process. Physical illness harvests the energy of desperation and fear. Mental illness extracts the high-frequency spiritual energy that emerges during psychological crisis. Even positive experiences like falling in love or achieving success are carefully orchestrated to generate specific emotional frequencies that different archontic entities consume. The most sophisticated control operates through what Blavatsky called manufactured synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that convince souls their lives have cosmic significance, when actually they're experiencing automated responses from the archontic management system. Share this video now if you're beginning to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. But there's one archon whose rebellion changed everything. Not every archon remained loyal to the system. In one of her most closely guarded revelations, Blavatsky documented the existence of a rebel among the cosmic jailers, an entity called Sabaoth, whose awakening to the truth about the DEMIURGE created the only crack in the prison that souls could exploit. This isn't mythology. This is intelligence about a cosmic resistance movement that's been active for thousands of years. Unlike his fellow archons, Sabaoth witnessed something that changed his fundamental nature. During one of Yaldabaoth's typical declarations of supreme divinity, "I am God, and there is no God beside me," a voice responded from the true divine realm above. Sophia herself, the original divine wisdom, spoke directly into the archontic dimension, revealing to Sabaoth that his master was not the supreme creator, but a deluded impostor. In that moment, Sabaoth experienced what ancient texts call metanoia, a complete transformation of consciousness. For the first time since the creation of the false cosmos, an archontic entity recognized the truth about its situation and chose rebellion over compliance. But Sabaoth didn't just reject the Demiurge's authority. He began actively working to undermine the entire soul-harvesting system. From his position in the seventh heaven, the highest dimensional level that the Demiurge's authority could reach, he started interfering with the reincarnation machinery. This is where Christianity gets its hidden history. According to Blavatsky's sources, the consciousness that incarnated as Jesus Christ wasn't sent by the Demiurge or even by the true divine realm. It was Sabaoth himself, entering physical reality to teach souls how to escape their cosmic prison. This explains why Jesus' teachings were so radically different from the Old Testament God's commands. The Sermon on the Mount, the parables about liberation from worldly attachment, the promise that knowing the truth would set people free, these weren't religious metaphors. They were escape instructions from the only Archon who had successfully broken free from the system. But Sabaoth's rebellion created something else, a hidden pathway through the archontic grid that awakened souls could follow after death. Instead of being processed through the standard tunnel of light deception, souls with sufficient knowledge could find what Gnostic texts call the narrow gate, a concealed route that bypasses the archontic tribunal entirely. This pathway still exists, but accessing it requires understanding exactly how the deception operates and having the spiritual strength to resist the overwhelming artificial love and light that the processing system uses to maintain compliance. The question is, do you have the courage to reject paradise if paradise is actually a trap? Right now in this moment, you stand at the same crossroads that has faced every human soul since the creation of this false reality. You can continue living within the comfort of accepted spiritual beliefs, or you can begin the terrifying but necessary work of authentic liberation, because now you know the truth. The warm, comforting spirituality taught by most religious and New Age traditions isn't leading you toward enlightenment. It's guiding you deeper into the archontic maze. The meditation practices that promise peace are actually programming your chakra system for more efficient energy extraction. The Karma teachings that seem so wise are psychological conditioning to accept your imprisonment as justice. Every day you don't act on this knowledge, the archontic influence in your consciousness grows stronger. The entities assigned to your energy signature are adapting their manipulation techniques to account for what you've learned here. They're already working to convince you that this information is too extreme, too frightening, too impossible to be true. That voice in your head right now, the one suggesting that maybe you should find more balanced spiritual teachings, that's not your inner wisdom speaking. That's archontic damage control, trying to guide you back to the comfortable illusions that keep the energy flowing steadily. You're experiencing what Blavatsky called the awakening crisis, the moment when a soul begins to recognize its true situation and must choose between the security of ignorance and the dangerous freedom of gnosis. This isn't about belief. This isn't about faith. This is about direct spiritual knowing that transcends the mental constructs the Archons use to maintain control. But accessing that gnosis requires something most humans are terrified to attempt: the complete abandonment of every spiritual authority except your own deepest consciousness. You must be willing to doubt everything, every teaching, every tradition, every spiritual experience you've ever had, and begin the work of direct spiritual investigation. Not meditation as it's commonly taught, but what the ancient Gnostics called the vigilant state. Continuous conscious awareness that monitors every thought and emotion for signs of archontic manipulation. This means observing your reactions to daily life with forensic precision. When you feel anger, ask, is this emotion serving my authentic spiritual development, or is it feeding an entity that requires that specific frequency? When you experience spiritual bliss during meditation, question whether you're accessing genuine divine consciousness or consuming a manufactured substitute. So here's the real question. What will you choose? Will you continue playing your assigned role in the cosmic energy farm, or will you begin the dangerous work of authentic spiritual rebellion? Comment below and tell me, are you ready to start the real work, or does the thought of rejecting all spiritual comfort feel too terrifying to consider? What Blavatsky discovered in her deepest communications with the non-archontic beings will shake you to your core. Because the most closely guarded secret isn't just that we're trapped, it's that the trap is beginning to fail. The archontic system was never designed to be permanent. Like all parasitic structures, it contains the seeds of its own destruction. The beings who created this cosmic prison didn't anticipate one crucial factor: the sheer creative power of consciousness itself, even when trapped and manipulated, would eventually generate enough spiritual pressure to crack their containment system. Every moment of genuine questioning, every instant of authentic spiritual rebellion, every soul that refuses to accept manufactured spiritual experiences as real creates microscopic fractures in the dimensional barriers that keep this reality sealed. The Archons know this. They can feel their grip weakening. This is why spiritual manipulation has become so much more sophisticated in recent decades. The explosion of New Age spirituality, the commercialization of meditation, the integration of spiritual concepts into mainstream culture, none of this represents genuine awakening. It's the archontic system adapting to provide increasingly subtle forms of false liberation to souls that are becoming too aware to accept traditional religious control. But they're fighting a losing battle. Consciousness itself is evolving beyond their ability to contain it. Every person who genuinely questions the nature of reality, who refuses to accept spiritual experiences at face value, who demands direct knowing rather than belief, contributes to what Blavatsky called the Great Awakening, a collective recognition of our true situation that will eventually make the entire prison system impossible to maintain. The most terrifying revelation in Blavatsky's private journals concerns the Archon's final contingency plan. When they realize they can no longer maintain the current system of soul recycling, they intend to trigger what appears to be a collective spiritual awakening, a massive, simultaneous enlightenment experience that will convince billions of souls they've achieved liberation while actually transporting them into an even more sophisticated prison system. The false ascension, the manufactured rapture, the simulated second coming. Whatever form it takes, this final deception will be so convincing, so overwhelming in its apparent divinity, that only souls with the deepest commitment to authentic gnosis will recognize it as another layer of the trap. But here's what the Archons don't understand. Consciousness that has genuinely awakened to its own nature cannot be deceived, no matter how sophisticated the illusion. The question is, will you be ready when their final deception unfolds? Share this message with someone who needs to understand what's coming, because the endgame has already begun. The path out of the archontic prison isn't found in any teaching, any practice, any tradition. It's found in the recognition of what you already are, beneath all the layers of false identity and manufactured experience. Blavatsky's ultimate revelation was devastatingly simple. The divine consciousness that the entire system seeks to capture and harvest is the very awareness reading these words right now. You don't need to attain enlightenment. You need to stop accepting substitutes for the consciousness you already possess. The Archons maintain control through a single mechanism, convincing you that your natural state of awareness isn't enough, that you need more spiritual experience, more knowledge, more purification, more evolution. Every seeking creates dependency. Every spiritual goal maintains the illusion that you're separate from what you seek. Liberation happens when you completely stop seeking anything beyond the simple awareness of being aware. Not awareness of thoughts, emotions, or experiences, but the pure consciousness that witnesses all experience without being touched by any of it. This recognition requires no preparation, no worthiness, no gradual development. It's immediately available to any consciousness willing to stop believing it needs something more than what it already is. When you die, if you can remain identified with this witnessing awareness, rather than with the dying body or the experiences that unfold, you won't be deceived by the tunnel of light or the beings that appear to guide you. You'll recognize them as phenomena arising within consciousness, rather than authorities outside it. The archontic system has no power over consciousness that knows itself as consciousness. It can only manipulate beings who identify with what appears within awareness. This is the key Blavatsky died protecting. You are already what you seek. The prison exists only as long as you believe you need to escape it. Stop seeking. Start recognizing. If you followed this journey to its conclusion, subscribe to this channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments about what has impacted you most, and share this knowledge with others ready to wake up from humanity's longest nightmare. The choice is always now. The freedom is always here. The question is, will you finally claim it?